Impact of mobility, change and modernization in India. India is known for its diverse culture. Prior to British rule, the social fabric of people by and large remained unaffected. During British period, a significant process of change was set in motion on account of administrative and welfare measures and also due to the introduction of science and technology. Existing social customs and traditional ascribed authority were no longer accepted implicitly. These changes were due to the advent of foreigners like missionaries, colonizers, traders, especially the Britishers. The missionaries spread Christianity and preached the value of equality, hard work in place of belief in fate, democracy and liberty. Secondly, the mass media facilitated the spreading of Western culture by connecting places and its lifestyle. Thirdly, opportunity for Indians to visit modernized foreign countries for education and training. The changes found in social institutions need to be understood. Major traditional institutions exhibited a partial and unique kind of transformation rather than a complete change. Dubé gives six-fold classification of tradition that helps in better understanding of Indian tradition. They are the classical tradition, the emergent national tradition, the regional tradition, the western tradition and the local subcultural tradition of social groups. The changes we are going to study may be placed under one of these categories for better understanding. Traditional patterns have to change at one particular point of time and should be replaced by modernity. To develop qualities of modernity, the society has to undergo a new process called modernization. Sanskritization and westernization are not the end products. They progress into modernization. It is a large-scale change with its effect on all walks of life and among all sections of population. Its impact is broader than industrialization and urbanization. Modernization can be defined as planned and anticipated change with the indigenous or exogenous source, which makes living more congenial for a new technological society by fostering individualism and scientific approach to problems resulting in progress. Wilbert Moore explains the results of economic modernization, geographic and social mobility with negative consequences for kinship system, family disorganization due to complete establishment of new institutions, individualism affecting both mate selection and parent-child relationship, deterioration of the social position of women in spite of female employment and freedom of movement, enhanced participation in secondary association, strengthening of secular attitude, alteration in social stratification due to varying status positions. McClelland observes the following traits instigating social change in a modernizing society: anti-traditional trend, universalistic trend, contractual human relationships, achieved social status, concern for material world, optimism, efficiency and planning. The following content of the lesson explains the Indian social context that exhibits these features. Changes in caste system, change within the castes. The characteristics of caste system and its role in Hindu social life were explained earlier. The Brahmins at the apex of the hierarchy had to modify their practices due to their contact with the Westerners and their migration caused by industrialization. They also became the model for emulation for other castes below them. While the non-Brahmins were taking up Sanskritization as a means to achieve higher status, the Brahmin were forced to seek mobility through westernization. The rapid industrialization and their migration to cities to take up new occupations required change of lifestyle. The status change among Brahmins due to industrialization was not uniform between the sect within them. The Brahmins of Mysore are divided into Vedikas or priest and Laukikas or the laity. Vedikas towards priestly vocation and were more sacred. The Laukikas performed other secular occupation. Although Vaitikas were considered to pure or superior, the Laukikas enjoyed the economic and political power in secular context because the opportunities to perform rituals for other castes were plenty for them. This enabled them acquire wealth and power. Secularization pushed the priest into a lower position. The traditional Sanskrit learning yielded them neither prestige nor money. Due to this situation, the priests themselves started imitating the Westerners. Many of the customs and practices that were regarded as impure by the priest gradually gave up to the adopting of British way of life previously thought to be polluting. Use of leather articles was prohibited to them earlier, but now they had to use it in different circumstances like leather seats in bicycles, use of tap water and use of electric lights and radios. The priests started sending their sons to Western type schools that speeded up westernization. In the long run, the family occupation of priesthood had been abandoned. However, there was a deep interest among these Brahmins to learn Sanskrit and ancient Indian culture. They began discovering new virtues in Indian culture through Sanskrit literature and spread it by way of mass media. There were many conspicuous changes in the lifestyle of the Brahmins. They have to refashion their hairdo to cropped hairstyle and modify in their eating habits. The morning offering to God and rituals as a strict practice underwent transformation. All rituals at home were abbreviated. The dietary habits of Brahmins earlier prohibited tubers like potato and onion, but after westernization, they started consuming these items and also medicines that were extracted from animals. Although meat eating is rare, even now many consumed egg. Consumption of alcohol and smoking cigarettes become frequent. As far as economic activities are concerned, Brahmin had to take up to new occupation like trading and manual work. Formerly, the occupation of a doctor was regarded as polluting because it involves touching the body of an unknown person of another caste, including untouchables. But at this point of westernization, they accepted the profession and qualified their children as doctors. Keeping, untouching and breeding animals at home was prohibited, but now Brahmins keep poultry. Another important change happened during the World War II. Their young started migrating to Bombay, Calcutta or Delhi in search of jobs. Many of them were enlisted in the army. These transformations prompted a sudden expansion of geographical and social space. Professor Srinivas recalls the prevalence of bride price among selection of Mysore Brahmins. But with westernized lifestyle, education and new occupation, the younger generation start demanding dowry. Bride price was the practice of boys giving money to the girl's family as they were taking one girl from that family. It was a kind of compensation for the girl's family. Dowry is expected or even forced to be paid by the girl's father to the groom's family in cash and kind. This new practice has resulted in a social problem. The age at marriage for girls got raised and many girls had to remain unmarried. They preferred to go for a job. Due to the new dowry system, the Brahmin girls who were set to remain unmarried even at the age of 30s. Due to new dowry system, the Brahmin girls who were set in marriage before puberty had to remain unmarried even at the age of 30s. Aftermath, child widows were rare and shaving the hair of widows also disappeared. Mutual disagreement between caste groups. Although we state that the changes in caste hierarchy are only positional and not structural, the system permitted a certain amount of group mobility. The extreme positions in the hierarchy were relatively fixed, but there was social and economic mobility among the groups in between. There was mutual acceptance and hatred among the groups in making efforts for movement. These groups that were highly submissive and regarded as untouchables found opportunities for social mobility due to industrialization and urbanization. This movement was both geographical and social. For instance, a barber migrating to city seeking opportunity to a new economic activity could live unidentified in the city without any reference to his caste. Secularization. At this juncture, we have to include the idea of secularization. Secularization is the transformation of society from close identification with religious values to non-religious values. The process of secularization was very much obvious during British period. It is permeated deeply in the life of Brahmins than among the other Hindus. The interesting contradiction in modern Hindu social life is that the Brahmins were moving towards westernization while non-Brahmins were becoming more Sanskritized. The non-Brahmins imitated those customs and practices of Brahmins that were discarded by them. Therefore, there was a general trend that Sanskritization is essentially preliminary to westernization. At this changing trend, the society required leaders who could guide them for development. Influence of the missionaries. The missionaries brought to the attention of the public those evil practices of Hinduism and caste system. They claimed superiority of Christianity and persuaded people to get converted to Christianity. The missionaries reached tribal pockets to convert them, which was easier for them. This kind of conversion the missionaries were successfully propagating facilitated the depressed groups towards better economic life, educational opportunities and social esteem. This in turn altered their relationship and attitude towards Brahmins. The new elites. The elites were mostly educated people like social leaders, professionals and reformers who were able to lead the common man for a new life. M.N. Srinivas calls them the torch bearers. Daniel Lerner considers them as the spokesmen of the masses. These intellectual elite groups appealed for ideological change in four possible ways, namely imitative, creative, assimilative and assertive, whichever is applicable to the situation. They developed modern outlook towards many of Indian customs like sati, child marriage, female infanticide, untouchability, parda and devadasi system. They disapproved traditional ban on widow remarriage, divorce and sea voyage. A group of intelligentsia too had emerged among the Indians. Some of these leaders are Tagore, Vivekananda, Gokhale, Tilak, Patel, Nehru and Radhakrishnan. Other than these well-known leaders, highly educated and professional people too were active in motivating people for change and played the role of torchbearers. sociological ambivalence. The new allied group was an ambivalent condition toward both Indian society and the British. The Allies were not able to relieve themselves from the strong pulls of tradition prevalent in the society. Dichotomous behavior would be observed in their life. The intellectuals, under many circumstances, displayed the qualities of marginality. Marginal men are always doubtful about which world to identify himself. As a result, they are self-conscious and confused. This kind of ambivalence is seen among the Indian intellectuals too. They adhere to the modern lifestyle and ideologies in occupational life, and under certain other crucial social occasions, they revert to the traditional practices. The principal dimensions of Hindu culture are the place one is born, the kinship he belongs to, the caste affiliation, and the linguistic attachment. In all the four dimensions, we find all the three possibilities, that is change, resistance and dichotomy. With respect to the changing Indian scenario, the areas of change are 1. Change in the family structure from joint to nuclear family. 2. Changes in ritual practices to suit modern life and occupation. 3. Women taking up jobs. 4. Improved intergenerational relationships. 5. Intercaste relationships found more accommodative. Areas of resistance to change. 1. Hesitation to break bonds with children and close relatives. 2. Maintaining the importance of Vedic principles like karma, rebirth and pabam, punyam beliefs. The status of women has not improved remarkably in social life. 4. Claim for paternal ancestral property. 5. Feelings of caste orientation. Ambivalent condition. Values relating to women and children on specific matters like providing freedom to choose. Example, choice of mate. Expecting children to be financially independent but claiming right over ancestral property. Reduced caste disparities externally but cherishing caste feelings and identity in mind. Trust in hard work but belief in destiny. Positivity attitude towards intercaste marriage but hesitation to approve it in own context. Change in family and kinship. Indian family is characterized by its joint living. The joint family is the one on which two or more generations live together under the same roof, with the male elderly member being the head, cooking food in the common hearth and pursuing common occupation. These traditional features have given way to new pattern. The change in the educational system that opened opportunity to all to get education resulted in persons getting into new occupations in different cities. Due to this geographic mobility, various other changes happened, like women getting into jobs, new way of city life and new values. As a result of this, joint family broke into nuclear family. This, in turn, evoked new ideas on property rights, status of women and intergenerational relationships. Changes in family structure and function automatically influenced the status of women and duties traditionally expected from them. Religion and change. Even prior to the Britishers, the missionaries had started conversion. The poor and the deprived groups were willing to get converted due to poverty and wished to get into educational institutions. While they were converted to Christianity, their outlook of life changed to a certain extent. The missionary-run schools, orphanages and hospitals played important role in social reforms and created an ideological and moral climate favorable for westernization. India is predominantly a Hindu society characterized by karma, dharma, pabam punyam and moksha derived from Vedas. This Vedic culture underwent a great change. The Brahmins, who were the authority over Vedic culture, themselves had to be selective in their principles. Sanskritization had already brought changes in the Hindu way of life. On the other hand, there was an effort to revive Hinduism in the last part of 18th century. Scholars of India translated Sanskrit literature and philosophy into English and German. There was a gradual unfolding of Indian history, archaeology and art. The literary work of Western writers and also Westernized Indian authors provided a new perspective to Indian civilization and its rich ancient tradition. This elite group became the indispensable intermediaries between the rulers and the non-westernized masses. They were like a cushion mitigating the shock of Western effects on elite leaders like Raja Ram Mohan Rai, who appealed to the followers of orthodox Hinduism to fight against caste and widowhood. Sanskritization among lower caste groups. This process of Sanskritization is neither simple nor quick as one might wish to obtain the position. This process took a long time and some caste groups even for 2 generations. They had to wait to transform and be accepted. During this period, lot of pressure they had to undergo from their own and also the group being aped. There were also cases of tribes and castes who attempted Sanskritization for a long time but remained unaccepted. Certain examples of Sanskritization resulting in high status may be quoted here. Bailey has shown the mobility of both distillers of Pulbani in Orissa from their previous portion as low Hindu caste below the barber to a high category as high Hindu. They even disputed with the warrior community for second place in the caste hierarchy. Another example is Agra Chamars. Chamars called themselves Jadab, a modified term for Yadav, and claimed to be equal to Brahmins. In 1962, the Jadab married a Brahmin girl from Mount Abu in Rajasthan. Andhra Patel makes a reference to a failure case in caste mobility. A Pallan from a nearby village of Sirupuram in Tanjore district, who posed himself as Padayanchi, was forced to leave the village. Education and economic change. The educational system in India underwent a drastic change from Gurukula to new type of schools that encouraged everyone to receive education. The educational system created a change in the values of the people. They realized the need for equality and universalistic principles. People of all caste groups had better chances to get into new occupations that helped them to elevate their economic position. The accessibility to new trade and employment enabled some castes to pass on to a higher status. The Teli of Eastern India, Noniyas of Andhra Pradesh, the Kolas of Gujarat and Karwas of Saurashtra were able to exploit the situation and move up in status. When these migrated groups had better chances to improve their economic status, adopted some Western way of life. M.N. Srinivas is of the opinion that to climb up in the social status, there should be collective desire to raise high in the esteem of the neighbors and friends. M.N. Srinivas makes a reference to the untouchables of those days of Rampura village in Mysore. The process of Sanskritization was fast due to three reasons. Firstly, their leadership supported Sanskritization. Secondly, their younger generation had more contacts with outside work, and thirdly, the leaders outside their village motivated them to change their lifestyle. Economic betterment, political power, education and group desire for social mobility are some of the factors facilitating Sanskritization. This did not mean all factors should interact together to effect Sanskritization. One or two factors might influence the mobility that made them wealthy and powerful. A discussion on various factors of social change and their interaction with important social institutions and the role of elites gives us a broader view on the earlier condition. This knowledge also helps us realize the background under which the transformation took place.